looking for ICT-based resources for your primary maths lessons? Well, today on a Resource Review ICT special, we'll be looking at 3 that might just add up to a winning formula. They are a CD-ROM of activities for the most able 9-year-olds, a software package designed to teach sorts and searches, and some software for data handling. Recommending today's resources is Lynn McClure. Lynn is a freelance education consultant and chair of the Mathematical Association Primary Committee. On the panel today we have Colin Hinson, a freelance education consultant and broadcaster, and Jared Brading. Jared's deputy headmaster at St Mary of the Angels RC School in West London, and he's been trying out the resources in his lessons. Matthew Tosh, our resident ICT expert, will be calculating the effectiveness of these resources over in the test lab. Well, Lynn, the first choice of resource for us today is Maths Insight 9. It comes on a CD-ROM, it comes with these two books as well. What is this resource and why do you like it?
I like Maths Insight because I think a lot of teachers are unsure as to how to meet the needs of their most able pupils. Usually what teachers do is accelerate their children through to the next stage, and what we actually want able pupils to do is to think mathematically, and that's what this resource is all about. There are 5 different sections on the CD. The one that I'd like to show you very briefly is about writing a question, and there are 3 different questions all on the same sort of theme, and then they have a writing frame in order to make one up. The second sort of activity is one where you can open some questions out. So in this particular one, you're asked to put the block on the grid so that the answers add up to 700. What we then do is look at the dimensions of this question and ask, how could we open this question out? So we could, for example, make this grid go from 0 to 30. Would the blue cross still add up to 700?
Well, before we go any further, let's go over and see what Matthew made of Maths Insight 9.
Maths Insight 9 comprises both computer-based and paper-based activities. Of course, I'm going to be focusing on the computer-based ones today. Essentially, you've got a list of questions that you can set for pupils, and I can choose up to a maximum of 5 activities. Once I've selected them, I hit the Start button, and it takes us into the activities themselves. The one I'm going to start with is a kind of true and false statement quiz, and I can drag my answers down into the table. Now, you'll notice I'm just dragging them down into any old place at the moment, and there's no feedback because it's up to teachers to do the marking with this software. I can change activity. This one's a little bit more thought-provoking. I've got to create a series of shapes which are symmetrical, and I just have a maximum of 2 clicks. I think it's that one. Yes, I've got it symmetrical now. Now, all of the answers that you put into the programme as you scroll through the quizzes are preserved. If I just take you back to the main menu, I can't because I need to put a password in first, and I quite like this because it encourages pupils to stay focused on the task if they don't have the password. But if I do put the password in, I'll show you a couple of resources that aren't interactive. They've been included here really as kind of print masters to back up the paper copies that you've got. It's an uncomplicated resource, and above all, it's incredibly user-friendly.
Well, let's now go to Jared, and you've actually tried this in your school. How did it go down?
I used it with a small group of able children, and they really enjoyed it. It was very user-friendly, and to be fair, I did leave some of them on their own for a while, and they worked through the questions quite happily. But they really liked it. They found it very easy to use. They found the interactive questions very entertaining, and they enjoyed the programme. I didn't take it perhaps as far as Lynn mentioned about writing a question and moving them on as much as I could have done. And now, having listened to Lynn, I could move them a lot further. So, I mean, there's much more to the programme than I used at the time. You can use it as an extension activity on your interactive whiteboard or something like that, where they can move on and you talk to them as a group. But it does need a bit of input to move the children on as far as you could.
Absolutely.
So which is sometimes quite difficult.
Colin, what are your thoughts on this one?
Well, I was really pleased to see resources now being produced for gifted and talented pupils. You know, so often in the past when we've had gifted and talented pupils in the classroom, they've simply been given materials that were meant for the year above or something like that, whereas this is tailored to 9-year-olds who are gifted and talented in maths, and for that reason I think it's a very, very good resource. It's still in its infancy, provision for gifted and talented pupils, and I think this is a real step forward.
OK, well, thank you all very much. Now let's move on to Lynn's second choice of resource, and it comes from Too Simple, and it's called To Investigate. So, Lynn, what is this resource, and what is it that you like about it?
Well, unlike Maths in Sight, which is a series of activities all written out for the teacher to use, this is not a series of activities. This is a tool which the teacher has to interpret. This is a database. And one of the reasons that I really like it, and I like a lot of Too Simple software for the same reason, is that they have very good teacher support. So one of the first things that you can see is a whole series of videos, each one of them lasting not very long, which gives you a quick way in to doing any of these different sorts of tasks. The other thing that I wanted to show you, which I think is very good about this, is the wizard, which helps you to devise your own database. Okay. And the children can choose, put pictures in, and they can also put sounds. So I think this is one of the prime reasons for choosing this piece of database.
OK, thanks very much, Lynn. Now let's go back to Matthew and see what he makes of To Investigate.
To Investigate is a simplified version of a database package. It allows you to create databases from scratch, but I'm going to demonstrate it using an example database that comes with the program. Now, all of our records are displayed as images, and you can drag them around and regroup them on the page. Double-clicking on a record brings up the fields within the record, and provided the database isn't write protected, you can edit the values. Well, this card menu here allows you to add new records, delete them, and also design the records, and this is what you would use if you were creating a database from scratch. You can change the number of fields, you can have up to a maximum of 12, and you can edit each field as well. Of course, the true power with any database is the ability to search, and there are several ways of doing this. The first one is using the Find option here on the card menu. Now I'm going to do a search on the number of legs. Let's go for less than or equal to 6. And I'm going to chuck in another search term as well, just to make it a little bit more involved. Let's look at the name, includes the letter E. And we'll have a Venn diagram of all the results as well. So we'll click on OK, and you can see it's a really visual sorting process. And I can speed it up as well using our speed controls here. Off it goes. And there we have it, our finished results. Now you can also classify things according to the field, so you can group things together, and you can even report in the form of a graph. I'm just going to show you how quick it is to produce a graph. Just do a graph on habitats. There we have it. It's an incredibly user-friendly package.
Well, Lynn, Matthew described this as a user-friendly resource, but it's not cheap. Coming in around £200, you'd want to get a lot of use out of this.
And I think you could, because whereas Maths in Sight was probably only for one class, I don't see why this shouldn't be for the whole of Key Stage 2 or even the top of Key Stage 1. And if you think you were putting that on a network, actually that represents quite good value for money.
OK. Well, Jared, good value or not, I mean, how did it go down in your classroom?
It took us a bit of time, I have to say. Everyone's talking about how user-friendly it was. I had to spend quite a while getting started. But once I got to grips with what they're asking for, then we started to move forward quite quickly. And you can do some really good stuff with it, and the children did really enjoy it. I used a small group again, and we started to look at their own teachers. So they created a database of all the teachers in the school. So as a characteristic, we sort of feel hair colour, gender, vegetarian, tea, coffee, height, weight, and it went really well. So they were going off to find their own, to interview a teacher and bring it back. And it has got loads of scope for that, as well as the stuff, the database that's already on there. So it's as good as you can make it, really.
Colin, what do you think of it?
Well, as soon as I saw it, and I saw it was from Too Simple, I breathed a sigh of relief, so I'm in my comfort zone, you know, because a lot of teachers are familiar with Too Simple, and picking up on that thing about using it with other subjects. I mean, to me, that actually addresses that problem with its cost.
That's true.
Because now you can use it in the science classroom, you can use it for history, you can use it for just about any subject within the curriculum. With cross-curricular purposes, I can see all sorts of things. Matthew did it with looking at science, didn't he, with classifying animals and so on. So, a fantastic resource.
We were going to take it further. The children were going around with a digital camera to take photos of the teacher, and then they're going to import those into file and then bring that into the database as well.
Can I just say you can add sound to it too? So for those children who are not terribly good at reading and writing, they can actually record something. So that's very useful too.
OK, well, time now to move on to Lynn's third choice of resource, and this is called Furballs. Yes. Tell us about this one, Lynn.
I love this. I love it partly because it was invented by somebody who was a student teacher, and I think anybody who can find the time to invent something when they're a student teacher, I take my hat off to them.
What is Furballs?
Furballs is a series of, a set of little animals. Here they are. And they can be different colours, different shapes, and they can have different numbers of eyes. And as you can see, when I move the cursor around, the eyes follow me. Which
that one's got 3 eyes.
Yes, you can make them have any. So you can sort in the sense of putting them into a bar chart by colour or eyes or whatever they are. So for young children, I think this is a lovely way of showing how a data set goes into a diagram.
Right.
But the thing that I really like actually is the toolkit, where you can make a set. So if you're trying to get children to work systematically, for example, how many Furballs will there be if you've got 2 colours and they're allowed 3 different numbers of eyes? Here we are, they've got 3, and this is a red one, so let's have one of those. And then we could have a yellow one, which is the same. Let's have one of those. But then we need them with 2 eyes, so let's have one of those.
Oh, I see what
So you can develop a whole set. So although it's intended, I think, to be a sorting, data handling thing, I actually think it's more than that. There's sort of quite a problem-solving element to it too.
Lynn, we're just evaluating a demonstration version here. By the time our programme is broadcast, it will be out in a full version, but by that stage it won't be cheap. It will be £250 for a full site licence. It will be more than this, but will it be worth it?
Well, I certainly wouldn't pay £250 for this, but I think we'd have to reserve judgment until we saw what the full version was like to see whether it really was value for money. But then this is free and downloadable, so everybody ought to download it now quickly whilst it's still free.
And have a look.
Yeah.
OK. Well, Jared, what did you make of Furballs?
The children loved it. They really enjoyed it. They found it very enjoyable resource. They went away and played it. But as a starter, it was an excellent starter on the interactive whiteboard. We sorted the Furballs by eyes, by colour, by shape, and number of sizes of shape. And it was a very good starter. But then to take it further, it was a bit limited, and that was the end of the activity, really. The children on their own played with it quite nicely for 5–10 minutes and said, OK, now what do we do? And once they'd seen the eyes move around, they changed the number of Furballs to 100. They were a bit sort of, OK, now what?
Colin, did you like the Furballs?
I enjoyed it, and my daughter enjoyed it very much. She very much saw them as computer pets, you know, and she wanted to keep them on screen the whole time and wanting to do a lot more with them, so it'd be good to see the full version when it arrives.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right, well, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. But just to recap, the 3 resources that we've looked at are Maths Insight 9 from NFER Nelson, To Investigate from Too Simple Software Limited, and the demonstration version of Furballs from Alec McEachran. The full version to be released by Sherston Software in early 2007. For more information about the resources we've looked at today, go to our website, that's teachers.tv/resource review, or if you want to email us, resourcereview@teachers.tv. I'd like to say a very big thank you to our panel, to Lynn, to Jared and to Colin. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on Resource Review. Bye-bye.